like, you were the youngest. What do you feel your parents were expecting you to become?
Like all parents, they want their children to be happy.
Are you happy?
I am happy in the sense that I have many things to be grateful for. But if I have a wish for myself, it's to be able to achieve something.
Listen, this story was never supposed to come back. Everyone thought it was done, sealed, archived, wrapped up neatly with court verdicts, prison sentences, and carefully worded headlines that let the world exhale and move on. The names were spoken, then quietly retired. The outrage cooled, attention shifted, and silence settled in like a heavy curtain, convincing people that whatever truth existed had already been handled. But silence doesn't mean the truth died. Sometimes it just means it was waiting for the moment when protection runs out, when favors expire, when loyalty no longer pays. From inside a prison cell, Ghislaine Maxwell no longer has friends to impress, reputations to guard, or futures to bargain for. According to source claims, she hasn't started shouting. She hasn't gone public with dramatic declarations. She's doing something far more unsettling. She's speaking carefully, selectively, and the names drifting back into quiet conversations are not the ones people expected to hear again. Among them is Meghan Markle. Not the Duchess, not the royal wife, but Meghan from before the titles, before the palace gates. Before, the fairy tale branding wrapped everything in gold and distraction. This is the part that makes people uncomfortable, because it pulls us back to a chapter that was never meant to be reread. A time when access mattered more than fame, when being unknown was actually an advantage, when photographs were taken casually, without anyone realizing how dangerous they might become years later. Now those images, long unseen, are resurfacing. Associations that were once brushed off are being looked at again, slowly, carefully, with a different understanding. And things that were quietly erased are re-entering the record, not loudly, not dramatically, but undeniably. This isn't gossip in the shallow sense. This is the kind of story that refuses to stay buried because too many people remember too much. Every scandal reaches a point where control slips. It doesn't happen with a press release. It happens with exposure. According to multiple source claims, a collection of photographs that had been quietly suppressed for years has reappeared. Not leaked with fanfare, not splashed everywhere at once, but circulated enough to cause unease. And it's not the images themselves that disturb people at first glance. It's who is in them, where they were taken, and who else is known to have been present in those same spaces at the same time. For years, these photographs were allegedly scrubbed, deleted from archives, made impossible to license, removed so thoroughly that most people forgot they ever existed. And yet here they are again. Sources suggest the reason is simple and deeply human. There were too many people involved. Too many overlapping connections, too many witnesses who couldn't be controlled forever. At some point, maintaining silence becomes more dangerous than letting the record surface. And when that tipping point arrives, things start slipping through the cracks. What makes these images unsettling isn't just that they exist, it's the effort that went into making sure they didn't. Institutions don't erase material unless it carries risk. Media archives don't quietly lock content away unless someone powerful has decided it's better unseen. Erasure isn't accidental, it's intentional. And now that intention has unraveled. The photographs place Meghan Markle inside a social environment long associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Not one location, not one party, but a network, a world of elite gatherings, private travel, protected access, and unspoken rules. This is where the story shifts. Not from rumor to accusation, but from rumor to record, because context changes everything. According to source claims, these images are considered damaging not because of what they show, but because of what they confirm. Presence. Not coincidence, not hearsay, physical proximity within a known social circle. They anchor timelines. They connect people who were previously separated by plausible deniability. And more than anything, they explain the silence. When images disappear, it's rarely about embarrassment. It's about liability. It's about what those images might encourage others to remember, or confirm, or finally say out loud. Sources allege that whenever these materials threatened to resurface in the past, the response wasn't confrontation, it was exhaustion, distract, delay. Let people get bored. Let questions fade. Let time do the work. because if something stays hidden long enough, it starts to feel irrelevant. But time has a way of shifting power. When alliances fracture and protection fades, the truth doesn't need to be argued anymore. It only needs to be shown. And that's why these images matter. Not because they accuse, but because they place. And placement is the foundation of every serious inquiry. To understand how this situation even became possible, you have to understand obscurity. Before Meghan Markle became a global name, she was something far more useful. She was anonymous. According to source claims, during those years she moved through elite social spaces without scrutiny, precisely because no one was watching her. She wasn't famous enough to attract attention, not powerful enough to be questioned, not important enough to track. And that invisibility was protection. At private events, invitation-only gatherings, lifestyle openings, unknown faces blend in easily. Names aren't remembered, faces aren't flagged. No one asks how you got there, who invited you, or who paid for your flight. Sources allege that during this period, Meghan Markle attended gatherings where proximity mattered more than status, where introductions happened quietly and access was granted without paperwork. In those rooms, being nobody meant you were safe from scrutiny. And that's why her presence went largely undocumented at the time. Why images weren't labeled, why names weren't attached. It only became a problem later. After the marriage, after the elevation, after the crown made every unseen step before, it's suddenly dangerous. If anonymity was the shield, access required a corridor. According to source claims, one of the most consistent gateways into elite social circles at the time was Soho House. On the surface, it looked creative, relaxed, harmless. Behind closed doors, it quietly connected powerful people who valued discretion over publicity. In 2015, Meghan Markle was reportedly flown to Istanbul for the opening of a Soho House location. She wasn't a headliner, she wasn't the star. She was described as social filler, someone to populate rooms, to attend events, to maintain atmosphere. But these weren't random parties. Soho House openings attracted financiers, royalty-adjacent figures, Hollywood power players, and people who operated best when no one was watching too closely. Invitations were currency. Presence implied access. What raised quiet questions later, sources allege, was the scale of the travel, international flights, premium seating, a level of mobility that didn't seem to match her acting income at the time. According to claims, even colleagues privately wondered how it was being funded. No answers were given. None were demanded. Because in that corridor, no one asks how you arrived, only whether you belong. To understand the concern around the resurfaced images, you have to understand what sources describe as the Epstein environment. This wasn't a single island or mansion, it was an ecosystem. According to source claims, Meghan Markle was repeatedly present in New York during periods when Prince Andrew was also there. Times when Epstein's social calendar was active and crowded with familiar names. The significance isn't a single overlap, it's repetition. Once is coincidence. Multiple overlaps suggest familiarity, comfort, acceptance. Sources allege she moved easily within rooms where discretion was expected and silence was the rule. These weren't spaces with sign-in sheets or cameras, they were spaces governed by trust and secrecy. That's why proximity matters. Not because it proves wrongdoing, but because it establishes who had the opportunity to see, hear, and know. And in environments later exposed as abusive, opportunity becomes a heavy detail. And just when you think the story can't stretch any further, it widens. According to revisited source claims, Meghan Markle's trajectory isn't unique. Other women across Europe followed eerily similar paths: early modeling or party circuits, proximity to elite social figures, then marriage into royalty. Two cases are often cited: Sofia of Sweden, whose early associations allegedly trace back to Epstein-connected environments, and Mette-Marit of Norway, who publicly apologized in 2019 for maintaining a friendship with Epstein, calling it a serious lapse in judgment. This isn't about moral judgment. It's about pattern recognition. According to source claims, Epstein didn't operate randomly. He placed people strategically. He moved individuals into environments where upward mobility was possible and where the past could be quietly absorbed once status was achieved. Seen through that lens, the resurfaced images stop looking isolated. They become pieces of a larger framework. And once that framework is visible, it's impossible to unsee. And this is where timing starts to scream. According to source claims, February 2016 appears in two narratives that aren't supposed to overlap. Publicly, this is when Meghan Markle later said she first met Prince Harry. Privately, sources allege this same window aligns with Yacht Week's. Private, invitation-only excursions involving wealthy patrons, models, and social companions. No press, no phones, no records. Sources claim Meghan Markle participated in one such week during this exact period. The significance isn't accusation, it's overlap. When two origin stories share the same timeline, questions don't disappear. They multiply. And just when you think it stays social, it steps into legal territory. Witnesses aren't accused, they're positioned. And the moment her name appeared in that context, even quietly, the nature of the story changed. It stopped being whispers in social circles and became something courts were at least willing to consider. Ultimately, she was never called to testify. The reasons were never publicly detailed, but the fact that her name crossed that threshold at all was enough to make people nervous. Because once the legal system looks in your direction, even briefly, the old protections don't feel quite as solid. And while all of this stayed out of the headlines, something else was happening just beneath the surface. According to source claims, as legal outcomes solidified and prison doors closed, Ghislaine Maxwell began speaking more openly. Not in interviews, not on television, but in ways that suggested cooperation mixed with resentment. A sense that some people paid the price while others walked free. Her alleged statements reached into Hollywood, modeling circuits, and elite social placement systems. And within those references, Meghan Markle's name reportedly surfaced again. Not as a centerpiece, but as part of a pattern. At the same time, observers noticed something strange. Image archives began changing. Photographs quietly disappeared. Licensing restrictions appeared without explanation. According to claims, Getty Images removed or limited access to certain photos involving Meghan Markle that had once been publicly available. No announcements, no reasons, just absence. To the casual eye, it might have seemed meaningless. But to people who watched these systems closely, it raised alarms. Because when institutions choose erasure over explanation, they reveal fear. Hiding something always draws more attention than addressing it. When systems move to suppress material, they confirm one uncomfortable truth. The material still matters. And by this point, too many people remembered what had existed to pretend it never had. The images were discussed, the environments were known, the overlaps were documented, even if unofficially. And silence, once protective, started to look fragile. For years, the story held together because it was curated. Images scrubbed, names detached, timelines simplified. What couldn't be denied was buried under what couldn't yet be proven. But protection doesn't last forever. Alliances change. Incentives disappear. And when that happens, the past stops being negotiable. What this story exposes isn't one shocking moment. It's a process, a system where obscurity becomes access, access becomes elevation, and elevation attempts to rewrite history. But records don't forget, photographs wait patiently, witnesses remember more than they admit. And silence only works until someone decides it no longer serves them. The resurfacing of these images doesn't end the story, it cracks it back open. Not with shouting, not with drama, but with something far more dangerous to powerful people. Context? Because once context returns, the narrative stops being controllable. What was once invisible becomes unavoidable. And the moment the record stops being editable, everyone involved feels it,